Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Money Mondays on the Daily Huddle, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Kimberly, and this is my husband, Zach, and we are joining you from Florida today, outside in this beautiful weather. But yeah, absolutely.
Came to the beach and
Have on long sleeves.
Have on long sleeves. No, we're so excited to be here as usual. Got some great things on deck. And we have a guest that's joining us today to talk about finance and moving forward. But before we get started on that, I wanted to know, since it was Easter yesterday, if anybody knew what happened to the Easter bunny when he misbehaved at school.
When he missed what?
When he misbehaved at school.
When he was bad.
Oh. They threw an egg at him.
He got expelled.
Expelled.
Leave it to Zach.
Expelled.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks again for joining us, and welcome to the Daily Huddle on Monday morning. We want to, today we'll talk about the question. We'll ask a few questions for you guys, but today our question of the day is thinking about investing. Where do I start? So I'm really excited to have that conversation with you. We have Dr. Monikah Ogando here with us today. She's one of our favorite Daily Huddle hosts too, so you guys have probably seen her on her day of the week. But before we get started and talk about all the fun things that we're going to talk about,
Yeah, well, let's start out by getting ourselves in the right mindset, right? So let's see. I love these. Kimberly.
we're supposed to ask these people.
What time is it? And who will you, and what are you grateful for?
Oh,
I don't get to ask you about who you're going to hug.
the time is now. It's always now, so I'm super excited about now. And I am grateful that tomorrow morning I have nothing and I'm on spring break and I'm going to sleep in. So
There you go. I'm grateful for that too. All right, Rashida, where are you and who will you hug today?
Good morning, my family Daily Huddle. I am sitting in my car waiting for a court date at 9:30, but I'm here sitting and being really patient. And with that, I am just going to be like conscious of getting out of court safe.
I always love how full of energy you are. It's fantastic. Gets us going right away. So, all right. Well, Monikah, good morning. Thank you for being
Hi, good
with us.
morning. I'm excited to be here.
How are you today?
I am the way that I said that I am, and today it is excited.
awesome.
Outstanding.
Well, I'm excited that you're here, and I've seen some of your stories and some of your posts and things like that. So I'm interested to learn more. So before we get started today, talking about where to start when you start investing, I want to introduce Monikah to you guys. You probably know her, like I said, as a host of the Daily Huddle, but I'm just going to read you her bio. It's pretty impressive. So Dr. Monikah Ogando is CEO and founder of the award-winning firm CEO Mastery, an executive leadership development firm working with exceptional leaders who want to elevate brand position, engage their people, and increase profits while honoring their true purpose. In addition to Dr. Ogando's success with CEO Mastery, she took her first company to rank as one of 500's fastest growing private companies in the United States. She's the author of 3 books, twice a TEDx speaker, and keynotes in the areas of leadership, marketing, and communication. With a background in finance and holding 2 doctorates in psychology and comparative religions, Dr. Monikah has become a foremost authority in building sustainable, leveraged, and profitable enterprises. So With that being said, we're so excited to have you today.
Wow, I want to meet that woman.
I know. I'm like, dang, girl, we need to have coffee.
Right. Yes, I'm
Pretty
excited. I'm
impressive.
excited to have this conversation with you on Money Mondays, because there have been so many changes that have been happening for a minute. If you've been in the finance world, you've seen this coming. So, for example, Cash App and other digital currency platforms have been having issues with their stabilization, with their systems going down. Recently, we learned that there was an unfortunate death in the Cash App family, with the Cash App founder, Bob Lee, having been murdered, gunned down, or stabbed actually in San Francisco, and they still haven't caught a suspect. So there's been this turbulence happening in the finance world when it comes to digital currency. And now the government is getting in on it. They're launching FedNow, which is their version of Cash App. What's interesting about that is that even though it's called FedNow, and it's backed by the Federal Reserve is not a government agency. So when we start talking about where do we create financial stability, where do we create economic stabilization for ourselves, for our families, for our legacy, it has a lot to do with your own mindset. Before we started broadcasting, we were talking about, what our families are doing and what our kids are doing and so forth. If you have any children, then you know that the way you parent an infant is very different than the way you parent a 15-year-old. Same person, but the 15-year difference makes a lot of impact in what their needs are, what their wants are, what their focuses are, and how to best guide them to be the best version of themselves. It's the same thing with money. And just as a way of background, when fresh out of college, my first career was as a financial planner and as a stockbroker. And it was still is a very male-dominated field. And so having a brown girl like me walking around with all these white guys, it was like, okay, either y'all are gonna have to learn how to not be racist, or I'm gonna have to develop thicker skin, or both things are gonna have to happen at the same time. And what it requires for all of us in the financial world is almost like learning another language, right?
Yeah.
When I start talking to my clients, for example, about creating revocable or irrevocable trusts for their businesses and creating investment accounts for their businesses in the very same way that employees max out their 401ks that their employers contribute to. When you're an entrepreneur, you are the employer and the employee many times. And so you have to have both hats. And so for me, it's an important conversation to have, particularly with entrepreneurs, because we are so self-driven and there is no other, person or boss or whatever to guide you or to tell you what you can and cannot do. This is literally your creation. They're like, okay, and that's the show, everybody. Good night.
Like, don't.
No.
So anyway,
it's fascinating to hear that take on things. When you relate something to parenting and you talk about it in that way, I think people's, obviously their knowledge, their understanding of money grows also, right? And so when you say learning another language, that's exactly what it is. It would blow people's mind, maybe not, but a lot of the folks we sit down with that are even 10, 15 years older than us have absolutely no idea what's going on in the world of money. Maybe they've been funding that 401k, maybe they haven't, maybe they've just been trying to fund the checking account so that it can empty out again at the end of the month. So the education and the mindset on, okay, what's my long-term goal, right? What do I want to have happen? And focusing on that from day one is incredibly important to success at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things to relate it to parenting again, one of the things that I think sometimes happens is that we get so caught up on the day-to-day and in survival conversations with all domains of our lives, even parenting, that we're like, okay, did they die today? No, they didn't die. They didn't kill each other. Everybody's fed. Everybody has a roof over their head. We're good. Okay, good night. Let's do it again tomorrow, right? Yeah. But you're not really thinking deliberately, what kind of human being do I want to contribute to the rest of my community by raising this child? What are their gifts? What are their innate abilities? How can I foment a sense of independence and a sense of worth in them, so that when they go out there, I don't have to be helicopter mom. They know how to defend themselves against bullies. They know how to navigate failure and uncertainty, et cetera, because I've built that in their spirit. And it's the same thing with money, that it's like, okay, we've paid the bills, nobody repoed my car, we're good, let's live to tell the tale another day. But there are some long-term strategies about how do you want to be not only an economic producer in this community, but also how do you want to live and leave a legacy for your family. I always think about there's a line in the song, everybody that knows me knows that I always talk about having musical Tourette's. So a lot of times a musical line will come into my mind, and there's a song by Beyonce and Jay-Z under the name The Carters, because they did it together, called Boss. And Beyonce has a line that says, my great-great-grandchildren are already rich. She's already set that up.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, if everybody thought that way, we would have less volatility in the market. So I'm just really excited that I get to nerd out with you guys on this conversation.
Yeah, that gives me chills, because I think that for most people that we meet with, maybe not most people, but I think if you really dug deep and asked them, what their goal would be as far as their legacy, that would be everybody's goal. They would want that to happen, but they're not intentional, right? They focus on the rat race and the everyday and not on the future and how to make that happen. So yeah, I think that's a great analogy.
Good morning.
And it's deliberate. And it's deliberate. The powers that be, as it were, it's like, we want to keep you distracted and focused on the hamster wheel so that you don't think about these other things, and that we can take advantage of.
Well, so I think that's a conversation that I want to take. You might not know. So I have a really great money manager friend that we follow, and he posts or sends out articles or whatever as needed when things are happening in the market and shifts are happening. And his last trigger, right, just popped the other day to say we're officially entering the recession, like it's officially happening in the next month or two, even though we all feel like we've been there. But what I found most interesting, especially when you and I were chatting about what are we going to talk about today, let's talk through this, is the noise that's going on in the world around us, right?
Yes.
Because that's where we are. And then how do we block it out, and how do we push it away to focus on our reality? Gio talked about it a few weeks ago, your personal economy. Yes, the world is crazy and it's spinning, but
it's always been crazy.
Yeah, but you have to focus on your personal economy. But let me just read you guys, not to freak you out, just to bring attention to this, what he said. This is his very first two paragraphs. It blew my mind because I don't think about it this way, but he said, in the last month, we have seen the second and third largest bank collapses in history. Collapse of Credit Suisse Bank, one of the world's largest banks, in under 48 hours. Multiple countries ditched the US dollar for the Chinese yen. Interest rates have risen to the highest level since 2007. President Trump was indicted, first US president to face felony criminal charges. Corporate bankruptcy filings in the first 2 months of 2023 hit a 12-year high. 111 corporate bankruptcies were filed in January and February alone. The U.S. is on track record for the most bankruptcies in a year since 2011. The debt to GDP ratio is higher than any time post-World War II. Leading economic indicators continue to contract and have been going down for almost a year. And then over the last 3 years, we've seen the largest pandemic in over 100 years. Almost $6 trillion is printed in stimulus money. Interest rates lowered to zero overnight in 2020. Interest rates are currently rising at their fastest pace in history. Inflation at 6%, the highest in 40 plus years. And I know it sounds horrible, and has remained above 5% for 23 months, largest crypto bear market in history. Total debt in the US is up by $8.2 trillion since 2020 to $31.4 trillion. It took from 1776 to 2006, or 230 years, to accrue the first 8.2 trillion. And then record high credit card debt of 986 billion. So it sounds horrible. Like if you put it all on paper like that, how are we still here, right? Like, and how do we focus and function knowing that that's swirling around and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better?
Yes.
So how do we move forward? How do we not swirl in all that?
One of the things that comes to mind is in the Chinese Mandarin language, there is a word for crisis, and it has two characters. And the characters for that word, it's like syllables, right? It's a crisis, right? So those two characters in Chinese are change and opportunity. And that's what creates a crisis, because more millionaires have been made in each dip of the economy over the past 100 years than the, Rockefellers and the, Stanleys, Morgan Stanleys of the world, et cetera, in previous years, in previous centuries. And so what we want to think about is, how do I, number one, manage my mindset so that I don't lose my head when all about me is losing theirs and blaming it on me, like the poem If says. And number two, how do I equip myself with the financial literacy that I need to make wise moves as a steward of my family's legacy, of my, my wealth or my prosperity, et cetera? Because as we have learned with all the ups and downs in corporate America, in the government, et cetera, even though we really like the paternalistic view of the government taking care of us or my corporation taking care of me in my retirement, I get a Rolex, blah, blah, blah. That model is no longer applicable in today's economy. You do have to create your own economy. You always did. It's just that we,
Right.
Fell under that stupor of like, I'll be all right. In 30 years, I'll retire and I'll live well. And so now, see what I mean? The cameras.
I
doing something.
know.
They don't want me to tell you.
out.
They don't want me to tell you. So while I fix that, let me keep talking. And so now it's a matter of, how do I, number one, keep my head and manage my mindset. We can talk about some strategies to do that. And then number two, get the financial literacy that I need in order to make bold moves at the appropriate time. Because there's nothing worse than doing the right thing at the wrong time or doing the wrong thing at the right time.
And mindset obviously is something that you're working on with what you've got coming up. And I think I'm a big proponent of mindset. If we're on my camera right now and I turn my screen off, you just see this picture of a wheel of the mind and how it works. But when I'm thinking about finance and all these crazy things going on, one of the most bizarre things to me is that we will focus on the chaos that we can't control. And stress ourselves out about it so much, reading articles online, posts on Twitter. I can't even, Twitter's it's just crazy right now with people and their opinions, right? In all different directions flying around, and all that. I have to distill it back down to what can I do to make my situation better, and all this other noise that I'm allowing into my head. I can't do anything about it. So why should I stress out about it? Be informed, but don't sit there and stew on it.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So part of the reason why sometimes it's hard to manage our own mindset is because we don't know where some of those thoughts have come from. There's a lot of the conversation around money that we have are typically things that we have inherited and we haven't questioned. So I know a lot of people that grew up thinking or hearing, what do you think I am, made of money? Money's not made of trees. And it's like, I want to go you got some McDonald's money, right? So, and then also using money as a way to reward good behavior, so that we kind of lose the connection between doing something because it is a contribution to the family or contribution to the community versus doing something because it is going to be well rewarded or well paid. And only the things that are well paid are worth looking at, which is why we pay teachers what we pay and versus athletes what we pay, right? And so, so the first thing that I would want people to do is check your 0 to 7. And this is something that I teach in the Money Mindset Makeover that is actually happening starting today. Check your 0 to 7. What did you hear about money? What did you experience about money in your family of origin? When mama first got pregnant with you, all the way to your birth, all the way to the time that you were 7 years old, that time is you being a downloadable disk. All of that stuff, your subconscious mind, your conscious mind does not process it, cognitively. In fact, you don't actually develop cognitive memory until you're about 3 or 4 years old. Now, all of us in this world know that we were alive. In order to get to 3 or 4, you had to have lived those 3 years, right? But you don't have any cognitive memory of it. You don't know who held you when you were 6 months old, or who kissed your feet, or, you know, that kind of thing, right? And so you want to start listing for yourself, what are the things that I heard or saw or experienced? What was the energy around money from the time that my mom got pregnant with me to the time that I was born to the time that I was 7 years old? Was I a surprise? Was I a burden? Was I a social, was my mom a social pariah because I was born? Was I given up for adoption? Was I abandoned? Was I loved? Was I welcomed? Because that has a lot to do with what you think unconsciously your place in the world is. And your relationship to money, was it a burden? Was it an inconvenience to have to provide for you? Because then you think money is just a way to get love, and we don't make those connections. And so that would be the first thing, is to get clear on your 0 to 7. And then the second thing that I would say is, what are you now telling yourself when you have money and when you don't have money? Listen to those unspoken thoughts that you have for yourself. Sometimes when things are going well, we're like, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like you can't even enjoy yourself when things are going well, because you're already anticipating a disaster. Or when things are not going well, are you saying to yourself, I knew this was going to happen. Nothing good ever happens to me. So when you can start to observe those thoughts that you're having around your prosperity, around money, then you begin to see, dang, I've been jacking myself up with these thoughts that I haven't questioned, that I haven't interrupted. No wonder it's happening this way, because if all is mind and the universe is mental, and I'm having these mental thoughts and these mental exercises, then it stands to law that this would be the result that I have.
You're doing it to yourself, right?
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what crisis is out there. There's always been a crisis. There's always been a disaster. Somebody's house is always burning. The question is, what's my experience of it, and what do I say is my role in it?
So how do we, and I want you to talk about your money mindset makeover that you have starting in an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
And then if you will, put it in the chat down here too, just where people can register and have that up there. But how do we reprogram our mind? I think for Zach and I, we're pretty lucky because we fell into this financial services world not in the traditional way, but we were really, really young. I was 23, you were 25, and so and all of our career doesn't mean that we don't still have work to do, because we always do, right? But all of our career was brainwash yourself or somebody else will, right? Like all of our career was reprogramming ourselves on how do we view the world and change this. And there's no such thing as try, and don't say if, and you know what I mean? Like just controlling the words that you say and controlling your mind and being intentional about that. But most people haven't had that. Like my kids even make fun of me. They're like, Mom, what do they call it? My juju, you know, they're like, Mom, oh my God, you know, they like write papers at school about their crazy mom, but I don't care, you know, it doesn't matter to me. But most people in the world think people that think like me and probably like you were crazy, right? We got this little world that we live in this bubble, and I just tell people I prefer my bubble. Like I don't like reality. I like my world, right? Like
I tell my daughter, I'm like crazy like a fox. You know, foxes look like they're running around crazy, but that's a decoy. That's deliberate so that you won't kill them because they're too small.
So how do you start, especially without having a framework and a support system to really help you start reprogramming your mind so you can focus on your personal economy and your possibilities and your legacy and all of that?
That's a great question. So we were talking about the challenge, the money mindset makeover challenge that starts in a few minutes. People can go to monikahogando.com/challenge, and I put it in the chat. It's free. It's for the next 5 days. And so the first day, today, we talk about that mindset thing. So here's where you would start with that. What I say, would start with that. Like I said, first, investigate your 0 to 7, and how did you get raised to think about money and your relationship to it, and then compare that to where you are now, to see how much of that you're still carrying around. I'm not asking you to interrupt it yet. I'm just saying observe it, because even the act of observation is enough to interrupt it sometimes, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, human beings, for as long as we have any kind of documented and even undocumented history of our civilizations, we have always learned by modeling. So all you are ever doing is managing your orientation. Who are you looking at to model? one of the things that we tend to do, because we are community-based, tribal-based by nature, it's instinctual for us to do that. So what we do is that we tend to model our family of origin, whether they were successful or not. But because of the proximity and because of how much we love them and we still have an emotional attachment to them, it's like, I can't out-earn my father. I can't do what, you know what I mean? And so it takes a lot of mental graduation, as it were, to outshine your family of origin in a way. And there's so much, kind of like a gravitational pull that you have to win against in order to be able to do that. Because then it's like, once I do outshine them, then I owe them. Now I have to bring them along, and maybe they don't want to, or maybe it's a never-ending step, etc. So examining that family of origin conversation, what have you been modeling? And then making the decision to model the people who have accomplished that which you wish to accomplish. So I would rather listen, in terms of money moves, I would rather listen to a Warren Buffett or even a Jay-Z. They're friends. Warren Buffett and Jay-Z are friends. So, the rich people tend to hang out with rich people, and broke people tend to hang out with other broke people.
It's crazy, right?
You want to start looking at who has done what I want to do. And what did they do? Let me start modeling that. Because you're going to model somebody regardless. You're either going to model your family of origin by default, or you're going to model somebody that you want to go after. That would be the second thing. And then the third piece is keep your moves silent. This is the issue that I have with like this influencer culture, is that everybody's flossing for the gram, and sometimes they'll even rent stuff that they don't even own just so they can look good in their IG feed, etc. And if you've noticed, for the past, 300 years since we've had mainstream media of any sort, newspapers, TV, radio, etc. We've had newspapers for longer than TV and radio, obviously. But for as long as we've had mainstream media, the people who make big moves do it in silence. In fact, there have been laws that have been passed in the last 30 days that some of us don't know about, because those moves have been made in silence. And the reason why there's been such a hoopla about some of that stuff, for example, the state representatives that got expelled in the Tennessee legislature, is because they took a private conversation and made it public by doing it in session. So they became pariahs because of that, right? And so I just want to reiterate to people that it's like the things that you want to do that are big moves for your business, for your life, for your marriage, for your children, do those things in private. Celebrate after you've done it. Don't talk about it as you're doing it.
I think there's so many questions that I want to ask you, and so many conversations that I want to have, and I just want to continue to do this all day long. I know for the Daily Huddle and for you guys today, we have just another minute or two to close it up. So we're going to be really mean and not allow you guys to ask questions today because we're out of time. But I'm going to encourage you to go to that link in the chat and sign up for that money mindset and ask your questions there, because that's where you really need to do your work. And that's where you need to focus on you and focus on really what matters. And I'm sure there'll be question and answer opportunities and just so much learning during that environment that I think that's the best thing that we can do.
Not just half an
And
hour.
it's Monday through Friday. And it starts today. Is it every day at 11?
Every day at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific.
Is it an hour?
No, it's going to be roughly 40 minutes or so. So and then you have an opportunity to listen to the replays. The replays will be up. We have a private Facebook community, so the replays will be up for the 24 hours until the next one is broadcasted. And if you want to upgrade to the VIP bundle so you can have lifetime access to those replays, you can do that as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to be a part of that. Super excited to see that. In order to have access to the replays and the private Facebook group, you guys have to sign up for her for the actual mindset makeover on her website. But thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the conversation. I really do want to
we'll have to do a part two. We'll have to do a
I know we'll have to just keep circling and talk about that. Maybe maybe we can bring back some success stories from the money mindset.
Yes.
That sound good?
We can do a reunion call.
There you go. Perfect.
All right, well, guys, thank you again, Monikah, for being here. But as we sign off, I want to remind you of our 8 tenets. Number 1, when you head out into your day from this, love. Number 2, laugh out loud. Stress less. right?
Ignore the noise.
Ignore
right?
that long list that Kimberly read earlier. Take care of your body, eat mostly plant-based. Give. I love the way Monikah talked about giving and as part of your life and being a steward to your community. Sleep, get that rest like Kimberly's going to tomorrow morning, right?
Don't call me.
Move, get out and walk, check. And then finally, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Just take a pause, give yourself a minute before you react. So, all right, guys, well, it's great to see all the faces and we look forward to seeing you again, same time, same place, and go join Monikah's event that she's having here in just a little while.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone. This is Cece. Bye now.
Bye, Susie.